not going to break itself.
Sometimes I wish that we weren't a video show, because then if we were an actual podcast, we would just be able to go, you know what, I'm just going to say that again and we'll cut it out. But we can't do any of that. It's just all the fuck ups in the intro just have to go into the actual show.
They add the flavor. They add the smoky flavor to this podcast that we need and the people love.
No, the smoky flavor is the content. The fuck ups are the river water that just washes that away. The backup, of course, is brought to you by the best evil person we know, the shark in Jaws. He's got lifeless eyes, black eyes like a doll's eyes. Sorry, I mean evil spy boy. He's got lifeless eyes, black eyes like a doll's eyes. Get your exclamation mark spy boys out in the chat, because thanks to his generous Patreon support, evil spy boys bring you the backup. And he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank Australia is Australia's largest food relief organisation, providing 88 million meals a year. That's 241,000 meals a day. And I certified last week, after last week's news, I double-checked it. And they're not all eaten by one person, so we are okay. To more than 2,600 charities around the country, according to 79% of all food received by charities from food rescue organisations. Also, Evil Spy Boy sent me a message this morning. I'm going to read it verbatim because I saw the preview, but I haven't actually read the message yet. I forgot to message the Patreon, brackets too busy. I did fundraising for Food Bank over the weekend at Brisbane Supernova, and I mentioned you are doing a shout, out at the start of news each week. I mentioned because you are doing a shout out, I think is what he means. I left out the Patreon part, but they asked if I could send them a clip. Didn't know if you had one you wanted me to send, or you wanted to do anything special and then tell me to send them whatever one. Should have sent this to the Patreon, but I was setting up and doing the thing all weekend, and now I'm wrecked. So I think he wants to know, Food Bank want a clip of the fact that we do a shout out each week.
Well, it shouldn't be this.
The clip would be, this is the clip. This is the clip, guys. We did it. This is the clip.
The clip is the cold read of his message. There it is. Done beautifully.
And it contains factual information about the fact that all 241,000 meals aren't eaten by one person, so I don't know what else you could possibly get. So, Spy Boy, clip this.
You're welcome.
All right, good. Head to tasteofmultifish.com for more info. All right,
Mainly,
the backup. But mainly thank you as well. Big thank you. The backup is where we talk about the most hard-hitting news of the week, as long as it's related to video games. And oh boy, we have a lot of stuff related to video games. So let's jump into it with the best news of the week. And that is that we saw 15 minutes of Elden Ring gameplay at the end of last week. I know some people who are in a closed network test for the game, or were in over the weekend. I didn't even apply to get in that, because I'm like, I just want to go in as cold as possible, with the exception of the 15 minutes that I've already watched. But I don't want to replay anything.
Minutes of this.
But I have opinions on this. I'm keen to hear your guys, because we're all From Software fans. Pete, can you start us off? What did you think of the X amount of minutes of the 15-minute footage that you watched?
It looks gorgeous. It looks like traversal of a big open world is going to be pretty smooth and fun. It's definitely Breath of the Wild Dark Souls edition, by the look of a lot of the systems that are there to help you traverse the world, and like big map markers and stuff like that. The interesting thing, I didn't watch all this footage because I want to save it for myself. The interesting thing that I was thinking as I stopped watching it was, like, they're showing a lot of co-op. They're showing a lot of like summon stuff and bring a friend, which I think could be part of this big open world feeling a bit confusing, and having like a lot of summoning in this game is going to be how they're going to like help people get around and find where they need to go. And but in terms of like what we saw, it is a very Dark Souls game in an open world.
It's funny. I actually found I found the I also, like you, Pete, I didn't push the whole way through it. I was like, I kind of want to leave some of this stuff. Even just this reveal here of this character who I thought was in the pot while he's talking to it. It's like, get me out of here. And then we see the character knock. What was the name of the character? It's like someone...
Alexander the Iron Fist.
The Iron Fist, who is a giant pot with arms and legs. So very obscure, From Software-y kind of strange creatures design, that kind of stuff. But I stopped. I didn't even get to much of the co-op summon stuff, because I was like, I want to enjoy this. I was taken aback by probably like the fluidity of the horse riding and the mounts and how quickly you can sort of summon and dispose of your mounts is cool. But I'm a little concerned about the idea of adding a free roaming element to this outside of the usual From Software free roaming, which is like it's open to your interpretation of how you want to move around, but it's still linear. It's still corridors. It's still
world, though. Look at that fucking.
It's beautiful to look at. That is stunning. But I'm a little concerned. I saw elements of like looking down and seeing a camp with a few enemies and a treasure to go for and choosing how you want to approach that. And I'm like, that's not what I come to a From Software game for. I come to it for these like brutal corridors of learning the patterns and how to dodge traps and that sort of stuff. And so I hope that they've found ways to put that linearity of like sort of level design into an open world. And I'm hopeful they have, because that combined with the horse being able to like leap off cliffs and do all this kind of stuff. Plus I wasn't quite aware there was combat from a horse. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's adding a bit of energy to the game, which maybe this sort of genre needs, but I hope it doesn't cause for clunky open world things to not feel as designed, I guess, is where I'm going there. So I don't know. That's a minor concern that I got from it. I'm sure it probably has found ways to get around that, i.e. going up waterfalls.
Well, that's been my major concern the whole time.
Yeah.
Is as I grow older and grumpier and with less time, I am drawn less and less to open world games where I feel like that thing of like you're trying to fill my time as opposed to like give me an authored experience. And particularly like, you know, trying to take this game on its own terms, the fact that previous From games are very much like, you know where that person is going to be every time. So that is the pattern learning. The puzzle learning is knowing where these people are, knowing what they're going to do. And then that's how you can start like moving quite quickly through that. I think that's mitigated by the fact that you could skirt around a lot of the combat encounters in this, obviously, or not obviously, but like from the look of this. So therefore, you don't necessarily need to, you might not need to do that boss run. So then you don't need to learn that. So it is like, they are making a different kind of game. I've been so excited for this, but at the same time, a little hesitant for those reasons. I loved what I saw. I watched all 15 minutes, and then I watched all 15 minutes again, because I was just like, oh God, this is just like so what I want from this kind of game. I'm going to turn down this a little bit. Did I turn it the right way? I'm going to turn it down. There we go. Bit darker.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm so keen for this. I think the world looks stunning. I loved the movement. I love the fact that it looks like there's not a lot of fall damage, if there is any at all. The horse combat, I really loved some of the horse stuff in... I loved fighting the horse guy in Sekiro and stuff. I think that the way that they can add like a fluidity with the horse stuff looks really cool. The enchanting nature of all the weird stuff that happens in this world is all there. Like, it's still all very frommy. It has that feeling as well of, even though it is an open world, there is like a haunting mystery to it. A lot of open worlds to me feel like quite sparse, and then you just pepper enemies around them and it feels like, oh, this is just where the clump of enemies are. I don't know what it is, whether it's just a preconceived thing that I'm bringing into this, but there was, look at that hitbox, by the way, like the fact that that spear grazed the arm. This had that feeling of like, I'm alone in this world. It's not like an empty world, but I am like by myself,
and that comes from that first.
Feels really cool.
That's something that the first Dark Souls and elements of the second one I think did so well. I can't really remember it as much from the third, but it had that lived-in vibe that is now desolate, abandoned, and all that kind of stuff. Which is, you're right, something that in any other open world would feel like a design flaw, but here feels like it's purposefully there to feel constantly mood setting and haunting in that kind of element. So yeah, maybe that's why it will be a nice thing to have not much going on in between big icons and areas that you're meant to travel between.
And that map is gorgeous as well. Like that whole like self-navigating kind of, doesn't show you where you are, but the landmarks and just like the look of that I love. And just like, look at this, look at the color, look at the like brightness that's in this.
And there's bound to be more interiors. Like there's got to be sections where you find a church, a temple or something, and you move into it, and that's
there are dungeons, like little dungeons.
So maybe that's where
like the major kind of boss kind of arc routes.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm still a little bit not concerned about, it's just going to be a change of pace, is literally the pacing of the combat. You know, like we talk about feeling alone. You do feel alone in Dark Souls, but it's still quite linear. there's only so many paths you can take,
Oh,
and
of
it's
course,
all
yeah.
interconnected.
All of them
and
are
stuff.
really linear.
But
Yeah.
it's they're like, you know where to go, and the enemies are paced out along that path in a way that gives you the feeling that the game wants you to have, which is I'm way too deep. I'm in way over my head.
Yeah,
Can I go
and it's
forward?
like
Will I go back?
Yeah.
That's the tension of it.
And it's also
and that's-
tension release, and the
Absolutely.
whole time. And if you can skirt everything, then it's constant release.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily that you can skirt stuff. It's just that you're not being delivered that pace of combat. You were just experiencing an open world, and there's combat sometimes, and there's boss fights sometimes, and there's nothing sometimes, and that's just a different kind of gameplay. So that's fine. I think it's just like it's something that I love about Dark Souls that I don't think will be here. But there's a lot here that isn't in Dark Souls that is very exciting. And look at that fucking head.
That is amazing. Oh my god. A dragon weapon that just fires from the head flames is outrageous.
Yeah, and I think this is going to give Dark Souls lore its biggest time to shine as well in things that are aside that aren't just like a note somewhere. It's a dungeon somewhere that has a note at the end.
It's so funny. Just the expectations you have from a From game is so different than any other game. Like it's almost like Mario or something, where you go like, if you showed me a Mario game that does something wildly different than previous Mario games, and I guess like Odyssey was a bit like that. Odyssey had that sort of like slightly open world feel to it. Then you go, oh, this is. I'm really skeptical about this, but then I guess you look at the track record. The only one of these games that I haven't played properly is Dark Souls 2, and I keep meaning to get into it, and then just going, I don't know if I have 45 hours of time right now to do this. But every other one of their games, I adore, and so I have to go. You know what you're doing. Like, you have earned the trust.
Yeah.
So if you think that this is a new way of creating the magical experiences that you have created in previous games, then I'll totally take it.
To add to Pete's point,
God, I'm so keen.
I am too now after seeing the stuff that I hadn't even seen earlier. But to add to Pete's point as well, the other small concern I have is open worlds run the risk of character AI and enemy AI wigging out and having that level of, which I think the From guys know what they're doing, because you do have that even in 1 and stuff where enemies would leave an area and return to it and stalk around or guard and patrol. But it's just having come off the back of a lot of Far Cry 6 recently, completely different game, but it's like open world, and as you approach, just watching characters get confused and lose it and run around. I'm like, that is also a concern I've seen in heaps of open world games, that I'm like, I hope that doesn't ruin some of those moments that you mentioned before, Pete, which are like, this is how that tension of like moving through an area for a horse boss to just suddenly wig out and kind of run around a hill and just be like waiting there awkwardly and being like, oh, this isn't really what it was meant to go for, or I found a massive exploit or something. So I'm sure they will exist, but I hope that they've kept that in mind the whole way through and haven't just lost some of that real like beautiful design of enemy encounters, because it does look good.
We won't need to wait too much longer, although I can't remember if we spoke about this on the news a couple of weeks ago, but we will need to wait a month longer than we were expecting, because it has been pushed from January 21st to February 25th. So it is coming out a month later than we initially thought, but that's fine. That's fine.
I only just remembered that George R.R. Martin is involved as a writer.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't even thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
For like 2 years. Oh, yeah,
right.
Well, it's because it's turned from such a concept to so much more gameplay, and we're like, oh yeah, we totally forgot about like the high concept trailers and all the early sort of announcements. But yeah, those notes, Pete, those notes are going to be dense when you find them.
They sure will.
And then the last thing I'll say is yesterday the Elden Ring Twitter account tweeted out the character selection. There's 5 classes. Mm-hmm. We've got Warrior, Enchanted Knight, Prophet, Champion, and then Bloody Wolf. Bloody Wolf sounds quite excellent.
Geralt of Rivia.
Yeah, totally. And the Prophet seems to have a wooden wheel around his neck. So
because it's from software.
Because it's from software, or because the open world AI bugged out and something went terrible.
The wheel represents the time he fell into a moving cart and got a wheel around his neck.
No, Pete. He did a forward roll through a cart and broke it, and then stood up, and it was like, woo,
Yeah.
we just stayed on it the whole time.
It's just more realistic than we've ever seen in these kinds of games.
Totally.
Cool. Elden Ring, very exciting. A bunch of Nintendo news dropped as well because they had a one of their presentation calls to investors, investor calls. That's what we're called. So it's not really like game news, but just like things that affect the status of Nintendo if you were a shareholder. And some interesting stuff came out of it. The first one is that, according to Nintendo, the hugely successful Nintendo Switch is still in the, quote, middle of its lifespan, which may come to a surprise to everyone who's like, it really feels like it's at the end of its lifespan and you need to do something to boost this thing. They didn't classify about whether or not there would be like a performance update to the Switch, as was rumored for a while, and if they're still like the Switch can get more powerful, but it's still considered the Switch. But Gus, do you think that were you expecting them to go like, because what's it been, 7 years?
Almost,
now?
yeah.
Came out 2017. 27. Okay, maybe it's 5 years old. And we're only in the middle of this thing.
It makes total sense to me. Like this device is so heavily weighted on the idea of it being a portable, what's the word they use for it? It's like not a hybrid, but whatever it is as a console that is like, it is doing the thing that I guess you've got cloud gaming with the other major consoles, but like it does it so well in terms of its like portability that I just don't see the need for it to have any real form of like performance upgrade. Not any, but like it just doesn't. It's more about optimizing.
But it runs terribly.
I don't think it does. I think it's like the games that are made for it that it work well on. Like, yes, let's all laugh at the Doom ports and all that kind of stuff, which you're right, look awful but can be played. That's not what this system is about. This system makes its money off Animal Crossing, off Metroid Dread, off, first parties, off your Breath of the Wilds and things. Breath of the Wild runs amazingly, and it's like there's going to be a sequel to that that's going to make me look at it and be like, oh my god, this system is 8 years old when it comes out or whatever it is. And yeah, for me, it's like, we got the OLED version that you drooled over and was like, this is something that is,
So this is your fault, Nick boy.
No,
it's
just
Nick boy.
Drooly Nick. Oh, it's doing the job of just giving the people who need to see something pop a little more. But in terms of performance, they need to just make sure their developers are focusing on creating the best Switch-based experiences. The Nintendo knows that it's never going to be competing with those other higher consoles, and it hasn't since the Wii, and it shouldn't bother. It's like, it's just make good experiences and make them,
Nicritex points out that Breath of the Wild, a launch title, has frame rate issues, and then says Lamau.
That's like, my thing. Like Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, like the games that they're selling their console on will have performance issues, and it means that they can't progress significantly past the things that they already are. Like you're right, I don't want Doom running on this. I don't care. I mean, some people do because this is the console that they have, and so therefore they don't have access to other consoles. But it's not really supposed to be doing that. But even when it comes to like first party Nintendo stuff, Metroid Dread was significant to me because I'm like, this is the best playing Nintendo game that has come out on the console. Everything else has issues, or they've mitigated those issues by putting in like downscaling, pretty significant limitations. So, yeah.
I guess the thing about this era is that it is the first time in a long time that it's Nintendo's only console, as opposed to having the handheld console on the home system. Sure. And so they're in an interesting spot where they've put all their eggs in the one basket. And you can, and the 3DS had such a long life because it didn't matter that it was maybe feeling a little like long in the tooth, and games just still kept getting released on. And it's like, cool. I mean, I just love the fact that I've got this portable 3DS thing. It's got a couple of gimmicks, and it's like, it's easy enough to take around. You can snap it in half in the streets of Shibuya.
I mean, it won't work
after that,
but you can do that.
We have facts.
Yeah.
Yep.
I should actually, I just thought while you were talking there, Pete, and Lily Peppermint in the chat makes a really good point, is that I've always looked at my Nintendo console as my supplementary. It's the other handheld version thing I have, and I didn't take into account then that some people, this is their only console, and if they want to play certain games, Doom, Witcher 3, it's like this might be the only way they have to play it. And in that sense, it sucks that those games have even had like an atrocious port of that game on it. So those people think, well, that's how I'm going to play that game, and it's not the best way to play it. So look, in that sense, I do sympathize with people who are like, I'm strictly a Nintendo person. I just want to play that. I'm not going to have both other consoles and a PC and, and a different range of things. So maybe for that sake, I reckon if they really put an emphasis on trying to put a little more grunt in there, I just don't think the developers are going to focus on it. And it's where these experiences like Splatoon 2, 3, whatever, all those kind of games are at their best. And people who have a
that's coming back to Splatoon. That's the biggest issue. It's not getting Bethesda software games working the best on it. It's that's in the Splatoon trailer.
That's,
that's what you're reacting to. That's the vibe they went for. Is that they need their first party devs to be getting the most out of the system, and and giving them the power they need to pull off the things that they're trying to execute. And I think props to them. They do most of the time.
That's kind of my original point.
Knock it out of the park.
Yeah,
but we're going to get Breath of the Wild 2 on this same hardware. I'm sure they'll have worked out some of the kinks that they couldn't work out on the first pass. And I'm excited to play more Breath of the Wild, but it is not going to be significantly... Look, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't think it will be significantly more advanced in any of its mechanics, any of its ideas, because it's limited by the hardware. And these are like some of the most brilliant game designers in the world. Who
right there, that guy
there,
one of the most
he's
brilliant
one of the
game
best
designers.
He's the top squid researcher, I think, in the world. So give him props.
Yeah, and it feels unfortunate to not let them keep breaking new ground. There have been so many Breath of the Wild clones since Breath of the Wild, and they managed to do that on this hardware. Of course, they might be able to do it again, but keep them at the front of the pack, not chasing the pack now. Because we're half a decade later now.
Totally. Up next, they announced that 32 million people are now Switch Online subscribers, which is astonishing.
That's crazy.
Up from 26 million people last year. 32 million people are using Switch Online for...
Not voice chat.
Yeah.
Splatoon,
I guess, potentially.
When was this data taken?
A staggery... Sorry?
When was this data taken? Like, this is fairly recent.
Oh, this is totally recent. Yeah.
Which
it says as of 30th of September 2021.
Okay, right. And was that... So is that after the expansion pack thing came out with all the N64 games, which I realize is part of this story as well?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the expansion pack... No, because the expansion pack... is it even out? They announced the price.
Yeah, it's out. But my assumption was that there's a lot of...
Okay, then no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
I was assuming that number reflected...
Are they counting the family pass as 4 people?
Ooh.
Yeah. That is so many people.
My thought was that maybe that's just the people dipping their toe in on that first month of N64 titles, play them once, cancel subscription. But if it's not out yet... Oh, sorry, if it's not keeping that in the data.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Not. Yeah, okay.
Caesar says in the chat, Pokemon Unite. That's a good one. You Switch Online because my partner doesn't own another gaming system, says Multifish. Oh, and I guess I also have it because of the cloud save. So I guess that's something. If you have 2 Switches, like a family, then you're sharing that. But they also said that they're going to continue to improve and expand both Nintendo Switch Online and Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, striving, quote, to provide services that satisfy customers. And I think that sounds a little bit like...
That's accurate.
Yep.
They are yet to strive for the customer experience.
You got to walk before you can strive.
And it is, I guess, it is one of those things that it's like we're all going like, why do you bother? Like, why even bother putting this thing out? Why bother charging? It was before the expansion pack announcement. It was just like, make it free. This is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. But then Nintendo's sitting there going, hey, 26 million people last year are subscribed to this thing. So we're getting millions and millions of dollars from it, and it's only gone up. So something seems to be working. And unfortunately, like always, people are idiots. Finally, Nintendo also said that they're not going to rule out acquiring new companies in the future, but have stated that it is currently prioritizing investment in its existing studios. And for me, this was the biggest one because I think that, like Pete said, they are some of the best. They have some of the best game design minds in the world working in Nintendo first-party studios, and put out. The hit rate for first-party content is exceptionally high coming out of Nintendo, but I do wish that they were looking more into the idea of like this acquisition. We're in an acquisition boom at the moment. Like everyone is acquiring studios, and I think that for me, something that the Switch lacks is the idea that like I can play. That all the flagship titles are kind of like still the classic Nintendo flagship titles, just the new versions of them, with the exception, occasionally something new pops up. Whereas I think of like, Sony made Returnal, and you can think what you want about Returnal, but Returnal is like a first-party game that is a new IP that comes out. Like we see Nintendo, like Microsoft are about to embark on an enormous journey of this going. The only place you can play these amazing games is here, and Nintendo kind of only have that with very Nintendo-style games, with the exception of Bayonetta 3, which we're seeing right here. And I think that acquiring some more studios to add some bulk and variety to the kinds of games that Nintendo make is something that I would want to see, but obviously it's not their priority at the moment.
And it brings and that would bring the quality control, or sort of the quality that comes from those first-party devs along with those acquisitions, I would hope. So it would turn those properties from interesting original concepts to staples of the Nintendo catalog. And I think you're right. It is woefully small and reused when you do look at it every year and think, it's Mario Tennis again or something. And there are some wonderful indies that turn up on the system, but just then like don't get the support that I reckon Nintendo could provide, because they have such a behind closed doors kind of, I don't want to say policy, but it just kind of vibe to how they approach their first party development. So,
but then also like most of those wonderful indies are also on PC or something else. Like most of them are also getting a release somewhere else, and so therefore it's not like they don't have the feeling. It's like, oh, I like the idea that I can play this portably on the Switch, but they're not sort of tied to the idea of like the Switch have these amazing indie games. They won't be indies anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the most recent like Nintendo new IP is. I mean, it's probably Wii Sports. Oh, it would be Splatoon. And they're already at their third Splatoon game. It's like there's Splatoon, Wii Sports, Pikmin, and we're already at the GameCube. So it's like,
I don't know how relevant this is, but I just want to add the fact that if Arms, did Arms
come out before Splatoon? Because it would be
Arms came out as a launch title, didn't it? Arms
was definitely after Splatoon, because Splatoon was on Wii U, and it was a Wii U title.
It totally was, yeah.
So Arms was the Switch one that they're like, use the Joy-Cons, and it was terrible, and I hated it. My only other addition to that is the fact that between all those Nintendo games, if you go on the Nintendo eStore, it is just like a trash fire of like crap that gets its way on there as well. And I don't know, there's such a divide between Nintendo's first party amazing titles and then just the crap that is almost hilarious and worth scrubbing back over the eStore weekly to just see what gets released on that thing. So it's like, that disappoints me that it doesn't look like they've ever stepped in and gone, there needs to be quality control here.
Well, it's interesting because like, I mean, I see how you see that, but I see a lot of, I think everything's too expensive on that store, but I see a lot of mobile games, like, and that's okay. Like, I see a lot of things that are like little puzzle slide brick things, and it's like, sure, that I would, if I didn't have a like smartphone that could do it, I would use the Switch to do it. I might even use the Switch to do it because it's a more convenient place to play games. Like, I don't think that's bad.
I looked last week, and there's just horrible stuff there. There's stuff that that has stolen art assets that is like not even a proper game. I'll send you the one I'm thinking of, where like
anything that's
strange titillation added to a basic platformer that was built where you're a cube and you unlock little sprites of women. It's like, and it's rated MA, and you're like, what the fuck is this game? Like this, there's some trash on there, and it's like, and it just keeps piling up.
I'm gonna need that cube with boobs game right now.
Nick, you were looking confused before.
Oh, I searched as to whether or not Arms 2 had ever been announced, because I was like, I don't think it has been, but I wanted to double check, and it hasn't, except I stumbled across the first result for Arms 2 is from fantendo.fandom.com, and it says, Arms 2 is an upcoming third-person extendable fighting video game developed by Nintendo. It was revealed on January 21st, 2023 in a Nintendo Direct and released subsequently that year. So I don't know what the hell is going on at fantendo.fandom.com.
Future fans.
Wow. They know things.
Oh my god!
Amazing.
So yeah, there you go. Nintendo keeping the investors happy. I suppose all of that is like we're doubling down on the things that make it successful. Online platform is growing, and you have no need to worry that we're going to go into the shitty console cycle, because we're just going to stick with Switch for another 5 years. So if I'm investing in Nintendo, I'm probably happy as a consumer. Maybe there's a little left to be desired. I'll tell you what is left to be desired. That is, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, anyone's appetite for Overwatch 2. And that's good, because you've now got potentially another year to have them capture your imagination with why this is happening, both in Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4. Activision Blizzard announced during an investor call today, and when I say today, I mean last week, won't be arriving as originally planned, but they did not provide a new timeline for when these games are coming out. It looks like 2023 because they said that they would not be releasing in the financial year, the next financial year, and so therefore it's probably going to be pushed to 2023. They cite COVID. There's probably a lot of work still happening on this game. About again, know nothing going on. I feel like a lot of it is just like, we haven't really nailed what this game is yet. Like why this game is yet. And so they're taking more time. And Diablo 4 at this point, like, just it's tradition to delay it. Just delay it. Don't talk about it. So we
that
are
brings with it like
quite
hype,
a while longer,
doesn't it? Any Diablo game being delayed, it just continues the will it ever be released kind of thing. Which I know for 3 disappointed a lot of fans, but it kept it. The lead up to it was pretty epic. For however long it went, like that would surely happen with 4. People will just be craving it more and more. Whereas, as you said, I don't think everyone can be playing Overwatch now and not craving a sequel that we have no idea why it's being made.
Well, the big thing is, and because it's an indefinite setback on release, it's like the people that are still playing Overwatch who are getting pulled along by all this haven't had any updates to there's been no new heroes in forever, like in base Overwatch. It's like they've just been told to hold tight, the meta's staying the same, everything's staying the same for the next 12, 18 months, because Overwatch 2 is just around the corner. It's coming. Thank you for being patient, because it's coming. And now it's like, it's not coming. And also, we're still putting all of our time into Overwatch 2. And now Overwatch 1 is getting just so little support for a game that, when you think about these kind of spaces, and Overwatch is a shooter, yes, but it is also a team ability combat game.
Hero shooter,
and that kind of thing requires a lot of balancing and a lot of tweaking just to keep it interesting, because otherwise, and we see it all the time with Dota and to a lesser extent League of Legends, I don't think they do as big a tweaks as frequently as Dota, but things to just keep people playing and interested. And they've done nothing with this in a long time. So the people who were sticking with it are now bored of Overwatch 1.
Isn't a purposely unsupported Overwatch 1 what they need to get people excited to want to play in Overwatch 2?
Yeah, right. Just let it go, get people sick of it, so that they need to move. It's. I mean, that is interesting, because both shooters and, let's say, MOBAs, because that's kind of what it is, live on updated content. It's going up against It's going up against MOBAs with all the characters that they drop, and it's going up against COD and Fortnite and Apex and these shooters that are constantly giving you new content. Like nearly every week, there is something coming to these games. So, it is going to be a while. And again, it just continues to be a bit of a shit show over at Blizzard. The weird thing about it is that they did confirm that an early build of Overwatch 2 will still be used for the start of Overwatch League's 5th competitive season when it gets underway next spring in the US. So the start of the season, or maybe they mean we'll be ready for the start of the season, but they are going to be using Overwatch 2 like competitively before it gets released publicly. I don't know if they're going to be changing maps or anything, because that would be very weird to see like a season of Overwatch. Oh, did it? Like,
yeah, the first international was on early beta. It was just like a broken build.
Yeah, right. Yeah, interesting.
And it is an engine update, isn't it? I think it's not just the fact that they are taking because for
a game engine.
I remember hearing that it isn't, and that was why I was reassured why they might be making it, because for a game that can create whole new heroes, whole new maps, and it's a serviced game, it's like it doesn't need a sequel because they can build a sequel in what's currently there. From memory,
it is not on a new engine.
It's not.
It will feature a beefed up engine. They're adding things to it, but it's like
beefed up. Okay,
you could have added it to Overwatch 1 as well. So
the confusion continues.
The confusion continues, and it wouldn't be an Activision Blizzard story without mentioning the situation. And this is the weirdest. This is the weirdest part of the Blizzard story in a while. They announced last week that Jen Oneal, who was previously at Vicarious Visions and then was promoted to co-director of Blizzard, or Activision Blizzard. Of Blizzard, not of of just Blizzard, after J. Allen Brack stepped down. So she got promoted with someone else to be co-directors 3 months ago. She's now announced that she is leaving. Technically, she's actually already gone. So it's been 3 months. She has left the position and wrote in a statement to everyone that, quote, "I am doing this not because I am without hope for Blizzard. Quite the opposite. I'm inspired by the passion of everyone here working towards meaningful, lasting change with their whole hearts. This energy has inspired me to step out and explore how I can do more to have games and diversity intersect and hopefully make a broader industry impact that will benefit Blizzard and other studios as well." And
how could you do more than stay at Blizzard and fix it? Or stay at exit statements are, I'm sure, just very difficult
impossible to navigate.
Yeah,
in this situation,
written by lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that last little bit about we're doing so well here. I'm going to go out on my own and fix everything else. It's like
I'm so inspired by the work that I've done here for 3 months that I'm like I could go do this in multiple places, and it's just like I can't. It's also a terrible look that she when she got promoted, that one of the things that people were like, oh, this is meaningful, is that she was a woman of color. And she is now that woman of color hasn't been, it doesn't seem like forced out of the position, but instead is choosing to leave. And I don't actually know what is worse in that scenario. If it's like, at least if she was forced out, it would be like, same old Blizzard. Yeah. But here, it's kind of like... She's looked at it and gone, I can't do anything here, and I have to go do it somewhere else.
She stepped on a sinking ship and said, it's not sinking so well, I'm just going to step off for a while. I'll be right back.
You would think if there were extenuating circumstances, like she had to move to a different part of the world to be with family, or she had chosen to do that, or, that they would encourage her, the lawyers would encourage her to share that information because they wanted to make it a personal thing as opposed to a just business not working with her in the position, or her finding that the position was not right for her. But it's just it can't be anything but awful sounding an exit note like that.
Yeah. Slam in the chat said, "Why not believe what the woman has to say?"
I don't think we don't believe her.
This isn't like her tweeting this out on her account. This is the statement when people are like, "I'm going to spend more time with my family," which is code for they found out what I did, and this is what I'm doing instead of going to jail. Like it's like this is not like her statement. This is the company's statement on her behalf. So it will be interesting to see what she decides to do. And the Activision, the ABK Alliance, which is an alliance within the company promoting diversity, says it's a sad moment for many of us at ABK who are excited to have a new experience with a woman of color heading our company. We found out during our shareholder meeting and wish Jan well in her future endeavors. So it seems like it was pretty fast, and then she's gone. And then the final thing was that a former Blizzard technical director, Amy Dunham, who also announced her departure last week, pointed out that 3 of Blizzard's most senior women have all left this year, and wrote on Twitter, and this is where you believe the thing, because she wrote it on Twitter, before you make commitments to recruit more women, usually at entry level where people have less choice to turn down opportunities, figure out and fix why all of your senior women have chosen to leave. So yeah. What is video game news without an Activision Blizzard?
Which is just on that statement as well. I think it's very important to hear that perspective from someone who's higher up, instead of a lot of, I'm sure, band-aid solutions to companies going through this issue is to put a rush on hiring or sort of trying to equal out the gender roles in your company, and by doing that, by hiring a lot of people who are at a junior level or something like that. And it's like, you're not fixing a problem there, you're just that problem still exists on a higher level. And that's what she's pointing out there, which I found really interesting, because it's like, I wonder how many companies out there do that as a kind of quick save, and it's it just leads to them moving through the ranks, seeing the problems there and then leaving, or not even getting that far, which is important.
Actually, is a quick save there as well. Noted. Moving from one company in disrepair to another, Ubisoft employees say that none of their demands have been met and have launched a new campaign with a public-facing goal to be able to get some change within the company. Current and former staff affiliated with Former and current staff affiliated with A Better Ubisoft Employment Group have launched a new petition asking for support in their campaign to end abuse at the company and across the wider gaming industry. In a tweet promoting the petition, and I do enjoy the way that they put this out, a statement from the group said, "You disappoint us, M. Gilmo. 100 days, 0 demands met. Surely you could do better than this." And made it in the same way as the email that they sent out from what's his face, Giancarlo Esposito from Far Cry 6 last week, saying to people, "You haven't played the game in a while. You disappoint me. You're like, Yara needs your help. Come back to the island and save us."
So they
and it's
turned a bit of their own press material back against it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, which is a very...
Was that done as a response to not enough hours being clocked in the game or something? Or was it just like a promotional push because the game's been out for a few weeks? I'd missed that one entirely.
They didn't clarify. It seemed like people, if you haven't gone back to the game in a while, then you got that email. But it was also a pretty blanket one out to a lot of players. So yeah. Unclear. But yeah, so apparently there hasn't been the kind of change at Ubisoft that they were hoping for, and now they're sort of like encouraging gamers and the general public to get on board with this petition to hopefully flex some financial muscle, I would say, to try to force some of these changes. Because Ubisoft has been a bit of a black box when it comes to this stuff. I think Activision have probably looked a bit at them, and you can say what you will about Activision. They've been a little more public about, like, here's what we're going to start fixing now, and here's the path forward that we're taking. Whether that happens is one thing, but they have been a bit more public with, like, their plans for this.
Yeah.
It seems like from a few of those demands in the statement that went out or in the tweet, it's like a large part of it is full company representation from the ground up kind of thing, and like involving unions, but also just like having sort of a set standard sort of protocol to game development and all the issues that they've been having like company wide, because having it divided between so many different studios, I think, is leading to the confusion that's having games having strange development cycles and problems with their employees and employers in the whole process. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting to see that a big push is to just say basically like, it's kind of a union push. It's like, we need representation because we just have so many people on the bottom level that are just getting trodden on here by the looks of it. Which again, shocking practice, but yeah, it must be confusing as well.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so moving on now to I won't be answering that phone call. Moving on to slightly happier news, but not good if you work at Konami, or if you like football games, or if you're in this game,
Or if you're
faceless
Cristiano
weird.
Ronaldo.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of good things happening for Cristiano Ronaldo right now, let's be honest. eFootball won't be an actual game until at least next year. Things aren't going well for eFootball, and it keeps getting worse. eFootball, if you remember, was PES, rebranded, launched quite quickly a couple of months ago to much disdain. There's a lot of disappointment with the way that this game plays, and there was a big patch that was supposed to be coming by the end of the year that would be fixing a lot of this stuff, that would be adding more teams than just 9 teams in your global football game, fixing the facial animation, most of the animations, the gameplay, the menus, the design. It's kind of like the full release. It was the 1.0 patch, and it isn't launching until spring 2022, so that's at least March, which means that this game will have been out for roughly 6 months in a state that you would not even say is a demo, is just a YouTube highlights clip like we're watching right now of the problems. What is he doing?
What a celebration. We're getting a full laugh of full laugh of the pitch to celebrate a goal. Oh, you crazy soccer players.
But Pete, just a wild ride, I guess, for eFootball over the last couple of months.
Sure.
So, killed him.
It's sure is. I if the game was not so buggy, I think all the like some of the quirks like that's fucking gold. I'll buy that game. It's amazing.
Seeing the selfie face animation of my god.
But it looks like, with all this skidding and stuff here, it just the football of it is so not polished and not working in a way that would be satisfying to play. So it clearly needs a bit more time in the oven. Even that stuff is funny as fuck. Like that's still a sellable video game.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I know what you mean. It's like Bethesda jank.
Yeah. It's where the football of it, the core game of it, is disrupted by these things that it becomes a massive problem. And it is a massive problem because they have a competitor. And a competitor that have just been releasing a solid game for a long time. And there was a time when PES was considered a better football game than FIFA, and it is they're nowhere near each other right now. They couldn't be further apart. So it's pretty sad
these
to see.
two who could not be closer,
more attached to each other.
And the competitor has all the modes that it's always had, and a big part of this was them talking about it, wasn't it, Nick? Correct me. Like, they're modes that have been staples in previous PES games that they're saying, they were going to be added to the game reasonably quick, and those modes are now not coming out till
it's not even modes. It's like the amount of teams. There's only 9 teams in the game right now.
Yeah, so you've got a competitor and you've got an unfinished game. So of course I'm sorry for anyone on the podcast, but I do implore you to go and look at eFootball glitches because they are podcast-stoppingly good.
Oh god, it's just amazing. Oh, fantastic. They're also they decided to cancel the pre-order for their 2022 Premium Player Pack, which includes updates that could only be used in the game after the update launched. So they canceled the pre-orders and they're issuing automatic refunds. So just a total disaster.
I kind of want to play it now.
Of a video game. And even though, look, I'm scrolling back through. At least we started strong. We started with Elden Ring, and it was like all positive, and we loved it. And then and Nintendo is good for Nintendo. The rest of the news has just been like things going wrong in video games over the last week. Marvel Avengers removed the XP boosters from their game amid a plan to rebuild player confidence. You might remember a few, like 1 or 2 months ago, they announced that they're adding these XP boosters as a purchasable item. After saying that they would not do this, they then did it and added them to the game. And now they're going, we don't want to lose all our players, so we're going to remove these from the game. And I believe they are already out. So it's a pretty big turnaround. But Pete, is there any saving Marvel's Avengers? There's just no positive
Doom
vibes.
I think there is, but
you still have hope.
I don't have hope because I don't give a shit. But I think it like totally could become something, and I think like it's disappointing for most people that it has had a launch that's been pretty underwhelming, and it's well beyond launch now. A post-launch roadmap that has seen some good features added, but not necessarily addressed some of the core problems, which are like, why is this fun to play for months? And at the moment it is not. There are just people who love Marvel so much that they're willing to play some decent combat systems and grind the same ideas constantly just because they enjoy the aesthetic and get enough out of the things that are here to enjoy. I hope I think they totally can. They totally can turn this into something, having not played much myself. But I don't think you can just look at this and go like, they're going to give up because of this XP boost thing. If they're going to give up, they've had many other reasons to and haven't. And I hope they just like find the right things, plug in the right things, and it becomes like a Realm Reborn style by letting people play it and following what is working for the community that are attached to it through to something that has broader appeal. They can get to something that is a popular game that will need a full rebrand, I think, or at least a cataclysmic event destroys the world and we've reset everything. One of those kinds of things.
I know we've talked about it before, but with going free to play, that brings with it a whole bunch of issues. They bring back things like these paid for XP boosts or something similar, I'm sure. But like it's Game Pass now, but it is a game that I just think the way it was always sold from the beginning, it felt like a free to play game with a price tag on it. And I wonder whether or not there's that reskin, that rebrand, that cataclysmic event tied to a restructure of how you can approach this game, and whether that would do it. I feel like that's what I would like out of it.
I also don't think you want to go free to play before you've got something different. Because then you get
tie it to that.
You get the Game Pass style thing that's popular for a month and then no one plays it ever again. And the idea for this game is to have a really long, life. So yeah, they need to work. They need to fix the game before they open the doors and get people in, because they want to hook people when they arrive, not have them walk away after 5 minutes, because then they'll never come back. The people like myself, I've never played it because I don't like solidly because I don't want anything that's in this game. There's nothing in it for me. But if I jumped into it in a year's time and it was something different that had heaps of value to people who didn't just like Marvel, then that's when they should be trying to grab my attention again.
They're not absolute diehards who are in here purely for the aesthetic and the setting. The people who are there for a good, fun game kind of thing as well. I don't know. I just want to see the DLC of Pete's superhero, whose catchphrase is, "I still have hope because I don't give a shit." It's just like good catchphrase.
Do you make your own hero? Don't you just play as one of the heroes?
Yes,
no,
you
just play. Yeah. So you're going to have to become a superhero. You're going to have to sell that likeness to Marvel, and then come back. It can't be easy as well, given that Guardians of the Galaxy has. It's been getting like mixed reviews, but I'm loving it, and I think that people are going the delivery system for that as a Marvel story has been really, really good. I think that like the story, the personalities in that game and stuff. So you go, that's kind of everything that you want from this, but obviously it's a single player. Or it's a linear narrative game.
It's a nostalgic game in the sense that it's a linear story with no multiplayer or any. It's the polar opposite to how this is built. And you're right. The sentiment's been really
good, and it's kind of like if you want to play good Marvel stuff, go play Spider-Man, go play Guardians, and avoid this. So we'll see. It's just how much more time do they have? That's the actual problem. You can fix anything. You can fix any video game. You could start from scratch with this, but like, do you have the finances to be able to go like this will pay off for us in the long run? So we'll see. Something that might help if there are PlayStation fans of the game is that on the 30th of November, Spider-Man is coming to Marvel Avengers, but it's exclusive for PlayStation players, which is another weird misstep in a series of missteps that this video game's made, where it's like, I'm sure Sony paid you a bunch of money for that, and there was a bunch of deals that like only Spider-Man can only be on Sony platforms because we have the Spider-Man thing and da-da-da-da-da, but it's like, oh boy, that doesn't help if you're playing on any other platform. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Spider-Man's coming. That's it. That's all I have for this.
It's free on, Xbox, and it's paid for on PlayStation with paid for DLC coming. So there's like two total opposites there in terms of like how you want to approach that game on your console.
Yeah, Accident pointed out it is already on Game Pass, so I'm pretty sure it's doomed.
Pretty sure it's doomed. I don't think Spider-Man is paid as well.
Oh, isn't it? Oh, okay, right. I just assumed it probably.
I don't think that they pay. I don't think they charge for
the new hero updates or anything.
The heroes, yeah, they charge you that sweet skin money. And then finally today, and staying with Marvel, but briefly, Marvel's Midnight Suns, the game announced back in August, which made by Firaxis, kind of the XCOM-y Marvel card battle-y social Persona style game that I am actually quite keen for. And I was like, this is going to be a nice start of the year to be able to like settle down with a bit of this in March. I'm not going to be able to do that because it's now coming the second half of next year. So it's quite a big delay. They put out a statement on Twitter saying that thank you. We've made the very tough decision to move our launch window to the second half of 2022. We know many fans were looking forward to playing the game originally next spring, and this decision did not come lightly. We decided to push our launch because we need more time to make this the best game possible. We believe in our creative vision for Marvel's Midnight Suns and want to do justice in delivering an unforgettable adventure set in the supernatural side of Marvel. These extra months will be used to add more story, cinematics, and overall polish, and will be essential in helping us make our vision a reality. Obviously, you can take as much facts from that as you will, but it's interesting that they're saying add more story as being like, we might just want to develop out more character relationships in that like social thing.
That's what I
maybe
think
even
they watched the back podcast when we were talking about it that first time, and we're like, we like the look of that character interaction stuff, and they're like, fuck, there's only one in the game, we should make more.
That's right. We just showed it in the trailer. That was it.
Yeah.
So they're now adding a bunch more of those. So you're welcome. But it does mean you're not going to be able to play it for another 6 months.
Sorry.
I think I'm the only one excited for it. So that's the over. Look at Gus's face. Like he's actually doing work now.
I'm thinking about Elden Ring. Actually, we should have put we should have put this at the bottom again. If you missed that, there's some footage of Elden Ring. Go watch that. Leave it on a high.
Leave it on a high. That's what we do here. That is all the news.